I probably started when I was 23. I'd been working in the garage for about 4 or 5 years. My mum's cousin actually took out a guarantor for £100,000 for my first machine, and that's how it all started. When you run a business, I'm afraid that when you're in the driving seat, it's down to you. And I'll be honest with you, I've had years of a lot of stress, and I suppose I'm lucky I've got a bit of hair actually, because people say
quite a lot of hair actually. You've done all right.
You've got hair, and also you're not too grey, but I think I thrive on a bit of stress actually.
Hello, my name is Nicole, as you well know, and welcome to another episode of the Big Chat. So my guest today is someone that, well, is very important in my life, but also we are going to start doing a few different topic big chats covering the Soapbox race, which, as a lot of you know, is the other event that we look after at Chatty Hatter, the Tunbridge Wells Soapbox race that's happening in June. And I've wanted to talk to this person on the show for a long time, but due to our sort of personal relationship, he's not always wanted to come and talk to me. However, he was the actual man with the idea for the Soapbox race. So I said to him, look, why don't you come on and have a chat with me about that, but also tell people about your story in business, because he is a local businessman and he's done a lot of really inspirational things, I think, and I know and think a lot of you will too. And he's got a very interesting story, and that's what we're about, is hearing how people have got to where they are and you know, the ups and downs that comes with it. So I'm really delighted to introduce you to someone very special to me, and that is Garry Jeffery.
Hi.
Hi, Garry.
Hi.
How are you?
Very well, thanks.
Yeah?
Yeah, very well.
Very well. Thank you for finally coming on.
No, it's taken long enough.
It's taken long enough. It's funny to be sat opposite you here, isn't it?
It is.
Not quite the dinner table.
No.
It's a little different setup for us. So for people that don't know anything about your sort of backstory,
Yeah.
where would you like to start?
Where do I start?
Yeah.
It's probably worth starting where I started my business.
Yeah.
I actually started my business when I was 17 in my mum's garage.
Did you?
Printing. That's how I started out. I done a foundation course in Clerkenwell College in London, which I'd done a year there. And then I got a job at a local printers, and then I decided to go and start doing work on my own, which I took a bank loan out with Midland Bank for £3,500, and that's how it all started. And I started working in the garage as well as a job, and then I just thought, you know what, I'm going to have a go myself. And I probably started when I was 23. I'd been working in the garage for about 4 or 5 years, and then I actually went out to do it full. And my mum's cousin actually took out a guarantor for £100,000 for my first machine, and that's how it all started.
Wow.
And then, so at 23, I had my brother-in-law working for me, and then my other brother-in-law worked for me, and then it just took off from there.
And what were you printing in your garage? What did you start off printing in your garage?
I started printing small stuff like letterheads and business cards and just general stuff like that. And then when we went into like being a full-cone commercial printer, I was doing brochures, all kinds of stuff, reporting accounts, anything, point of sale. But when my business really got going, I moved into having a full-blown studio. We done everything. We were like a one-stop shop. We done print finishing, we done designing, we done everything. And I had it for 27 years, which I sadly did close it at the end. I had a lot of good years where I made a lot of money, and then the downturn come when the internet kicked off, and it did. It just, all the margins were going. But I diversified throughout, but I could sit here for hours and tell you what I went through. But partly through my business, I decided to go into printing funeral stationery. Yeah. And I started it with, sadly, my ex-partner, one of her auntie and uncle got killed in an accident, and their 2 daughters designed an order of service. And I designed a lot of different designs. I went to the NAFD and I've become a member, and then I used a local telemarketing company to contact near on 5,000 different undertakers. And I started another business just solely designing and printing orders of service, which really did take off. And I was into some big companies like the Dignities and the Co-op. And then one day I was actually I think it was Edinburgh or Glasgow, and I'd been delayed at the airport, and I sat there thinking about a conversation I had with another parent at a football match watching my son. And he said to me, what are you going to do when the internet kicks off? And I hadn't really thought about it. And after really thinking about it, I thought, I'm going to really have to look at this, because I was already doing work for some big financial companies in the city. And I was already kind of warned that this work is slowly going to go.
Yeah.
And it did go. But I'd already started this business and it was doing very well. And then that's when I turned around and I thought, you know what, I'm going to start funeral directors. So I did. I was told I was absolutely mad for starting it. And I started it with I had no experience of it. And I did actually take on a business partner who I took him on for his expertise. I paid all the money I literally bankrolled it. And today now, I've got I think a successful business. We've got 3 shops in this area who my 2 older children run, and we've got a really good reputation. And I've worked hard with it, but I've also I suppose I have done property developing, because I've developed business premises.
You have,
as you know, one of them that I've done.
Yeah.
Well, you know 2 of them, and so I've been going into property too, which I enjoy. I do enjoy it, and I enjoy designing them. Quite
a lot there. I mean, look, I've got nothing else to say to you now. You've just got it all done in about 5 minutes, Gary.
I've taken over a bit, haven't I?
What would you say for those, because we talked about sort of what you were going to talk about today, and you'd said that you would love to, even if you sort of inspired one person to go out there and do something. And obviously, you know, my reason behind the Big Chat is to talk about how people got into doing what they're doing and their experiences of it, because I think a lot of people are too scared to go out and try new things. And you said that you've taken risks, but you said at the weekend, you said you wish you'd taken more risks.
I do wish I'd taken more risks.
Within reason.
And within reason. No, I would say...
Would you say you've always been a risk taker? Like when you were much younger, is that...
I have.
Because 23 is really young, isn't it? You went to college and then you were in, your garage. Not everyone would possibly be able to do that, would they?
No, they wouldn't. And I worked hard. I worked long hours, but I did take risk. My first machine was £100,000.
That's a lot of money.
At that age, it was. I'd got a house, but I then borrowed like large chunks of money. Some of our machinery was £600,000. I had 2 machines.
That's crazy.
One at $500,000, one at £600,000. And then I bought lots of other stuff from that. I had all our own bespoke premises built, which I designed. And I would just say to anybody, if you really want it, go for it, and don't be afraid to borrow money. I'm not afraid of it now, and I'm at 56 now, and I'm going to carry on doing it.
Yeah. Because I think that's it, isn't it? I think some people, I don't know, I think sometimes you've got to put your heart into it, haven't you? And actually borrowing money, not that we're advocating going out and borrowing, getting loans and getting crazy out of hand, but sometimes if you've got that, and not everyone's able to do that either, it's worth pointing out, not everyone's got credit that's able to do that, or guarantors. But if you have... sometimes you've got to show that you're passionate, haven't you?
I think what you've got to do is you've got to set a good business plan. And that's what I did. I worked hard. I wasn't just printing. I was out on the road selling too. So in the daytime, I was actually out seeing people. And then the afternoons and evenings, I was actually printing. And I used to work stupid hours. And that's really what you've got to do. But there is, of course, there's some luck in it. I've had some luck. I've made some bad mistakes. Which has cost me quite a lot of money. But I would say in general, most of my stuff has been quite successful.
Do you think as well, when, like you mentioned the internet, because certainly for a printing business like you'd had, it was Print Wells, wasn't it, that you had for a long, long time, and that was huge. It got really, really big, didn't it, as you said to me?
Well, at one stage we had 45 guys working for us. We used to work seven days 24-hour shifts.
And that must have been quite stressful as well.
It was very stressful. I used to come in and I used to sit in my office, bearing in mind that I started on the shop floor, and then I worked my way up through, and I was still not afraid to get my hands dirty. That's what everybody says to me. You're usually the first one in there, and you're the last one out the door. All right, I didn't when there was night shift, and I knew the business inside out, and that was a good thing. It wasn't a case of I was just doing one thing. I could do anything in that factory.
Yeah.
And that's really what helped me. But I would say that if you really want to make a go of it, you do need a good business plan, and you need to be prepared to work long hours and take risk. I know it's harder to borrow money now. You've got, as you say, you've got to have the collateral to back it up. We've got personal guarantees and stuff and that.
Yeah.
But with the internet, everything's going internet based now.
It is.
To be honest, the prices that we used to charge for all kinds of stuff, and just not general printing from point of sale, it's just gone down so much. And I could have carried on, but I didn't want to. You
couldn't have competed as well, like you said. There was, it was just hard work.
Well, exactly, and also the guys were on good money work for me. They still, I couldn't have gone to them and said, well, I'm now having to do this for a certain price. You're going to have to cut your wages. I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
And Tunbridge Wells was well known for being like the kind of, they said it was like the capital of print. There was so many prints in Tunbridge Wells and Tunbridge. Now there's hardly any full. There's just a handful. And they are all struggling. I'm personal friends with most of them, and they've all said to me that you're so lucky you're out of it. Which is sad, because it was a brilliant trade. I used to really enjoy it.
Yeah. But how hard was that as well, to make a decision to actually shut something down? Because
it was a massive decision.
Because we've talked about this a lot, and it for some people, especially now through this pandemic, people are having to make that choice for other reasons, not because of the internet, but just because of business changing. That must, I can only imagine, as a business owner, and mine's small, how hard that must be to...
It was hard, really hard.
To make that decision. How long did it take you?
I remember looking at where we were going with our business, and we literally lost probably near £1 million of work. I'm not going to say the company names, because they're big names. And to replace that, I couldn't just replace that, which would have meant I'd have had to downsize the business in quite a large way, and I didn't want to do that. And not only that, with the margins that we were working for, and all right, I say lucky, I'd already got my other business going.
Yeah.
And I'd also bought some commercial property, which that was there for my pension.
Yeah.
So I suppose it made it easy for me to make that decision, but it was a hard decision to make. I met with my accountant, and I say lucky. I had assets, not like a lot of printers when they go to the wall. There's nothing, and the creditors don't get on anything. My business was in a good way, and the actual administrator said to me, it's really unusual for a printing company to have the assets that you've got, and also the amount of book debt that was due into you. So he said to me, you shouldn't feel bad. But I did feel bad.
Yeah.
I had a lot of people that sadly on that day when I had to make that decision to close it was awful. But I look back now, and that's over 5 years ago, and I'm glad I'm out of it.
Yeah.
And the funeral business that I've moved into, well, people say to me, but you didn't touch bodies and that, did you? I said, well, of course I did. I was heavily involved with it when I started it. I was going out and sadly picking up deceased and that.
Yeah.
Same thing. I learnt the business, and I'm so lucky that my two older children have taken it on.
Yeah.
And they're brilliant. They're an absolute asset to her.
Yeah. So you did that. So we'll get on to that. So right. You did the Print Wells, and obviously Print Wells you shut down.
Yeah.
And then you'd already set out, and your funeral director business, for those that don't know, is called Henry Paul Funerals.
Yeah.
And that was named after?
That was after my late brother.
Yeah.
So it's our family name.
Yeah.
And the same thing with that. Like, I was talking to somebody this morning on the phone about it, and they were asking me about how did I start, and was it hard? And I said it was hard. I literally started that business with no history behind that business, and I was going into a business where there was one undertaker in our town that had been going for about 150 years. And I thought then, God, how am I going to compete with him? And we are competing with him now. I will say it, we're probably touching the same numbers as what he does a year in funerals. And we've done that in 13 years.
Yeah.
So it says it itself, but it's like someone said to me, but how did you grow the business? I said, I built it through a lot of hard work, as in I did throw a lot of money at it, as in I spent a lot of money on marketing and advertising. I supported a lot of clubs, as in kids' football clubs, cricket clubs, bowls clubs, all kinds of things. Shirt sponsors for Tunbridge Wells Football Club and Rustle. And I got the name out there. I drip fed it for a long time. And I did throw a lot of money at it, where this person this morning said to me, but where did you get the money from? And I said, I'm lucky my other business was doing well, and I had the support of that. But yeah, it was hard.
But also you have to take, like we said before, you have to take some risks, and sometimes that means, you know, you have to spend money to get your name out there. You do. It doesn't always just happen. Yeah. It's, you know, like certainly the big chats, when we first started doing the big chats, it was all my own money. I was spending my own money on building the brand up. And if you're passionate about something and you believe in it, you have to do it. The Soapbox as well. Look at us with the Soapbox. Well, that was our money. That wasn't,
it took a lot of money to get off the
there
ground,
wasn't a pot of money for us then. That was you and I spending our money on that. And people probably don't always realise that.
But it's like with that business, the funeral business is built on recommendations. It really is, and you have got to be good at what you do. You've got to be compassionate and caring. Yeah. And I'm not just saying it because it's our business. We're all of that. And and people actually say to me, you should be so proud of what you did and what your kids are doing, because like you've only got to look at the testimonials on our website, and I'll read them. I read them every week, what's been put on there, and they're not made up. They are actually families that go on there. We belong to a kind of little society. We have to pay, and it's all to do with the software we use for the funeral industry. And they contact the families and actually ask them about, would you be happy enough to do a testimonial? And you just got to read through them, and it says it for itself. And that's why. But it's, I say, I've taken a real backseat from that.
You have?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I'm
You're
lucky.
lucky.
I don't have to get involved with it much now. I was talking to Connor this morning. It was quite funny. We had a conversation. He was saying,
Connor's your son.
Connor's my son. Yeah, he was saying about like the Jubilee this year for the Queen's
Jubilee. Yeah.
And he said, "Can we do something for the window, Dad?" And automatically, my brain starts going into a mode of coming up with some design.
I can only imagine.
And he said, "There's a prize, Dad, for it." So I said, "Well, we're going to have to go to town, aren't we? Because we've got a big shop front window." And I'm going to go for it, and I enjoy stuff like that.
So, yeah, I mean, so for those that don't know, obviously you had Printwells, you'd already set up Henry Paul Funerals, and you had some commercial properties, as you mentioned. You've got a big commercial property building that was where Printwells was, which you now rent out. Another commercial property in Southborough, and then you had another one, didn't you, which is probably known now by people in the town better as the Shuffle House.
Shuffle House, that's correct.
Which is still yours, but it was
Jean's.
It was called Jean's.
After my mum.
After your mum.
Yeah.
So that was obviously how I met you.
Yeah.
And I mean, how did that come about? I know this story, but for those listening, when did you decide, I know what I'm going to do? I'm going to renovate one of my properties that I already own, and I'm going to turn it into a restaurant, bar, nightclub, and I'm going to run it with my family.
I think it all came about. I was thinking about how it really did come about. I think it was in Dubai, actually. I was talking to a friend of mine who is in... he runs it's a kind of internal restaurant in one of the big newspapers. Yeah. And I was talking to him, and then I was also talking to my kids when I got home, and my kids kind of kept going and saying, "You got to do it, Dad." And I think once our tenant had said that he didn't want to renew the lease, and I was thinking about it because sadly when my mum had passed away, I'd already started the property. But then when she passed away, she left me her house and stuff and that, and I used quite a lot of money. And I thought, I'm going to go for this. Tunbridge Wells needs something different. Yeah. And you saw it. It was different. Yeah, I spent a lot of money on it, and I think I designed it well with Connor, my son, and Millie and that. But it was hard, and it was. you were there on that journey. But you know what?
It's a hard industry, I think, to get into the hospitality industry. Like you've said since, I think you all did amazingly. I think Millie was there all the time. Connor was amazing. I think all of you are amazing, but it was hard for all of you.
Well, Connor said to me yesterday on the phone, he said, do you regret it? And I said, no, I don't. I don't regret it. And he said he doesn't regret it. We learnt a lot out of it. And I just think that I could have done it a different way, and maybe I'd still be here now, but we didn't, and we're out of it. We decided to close it. We had 18 months of it. And a lot of people said they missed it, but I own the property still. I spent a lot of money on the property. It gives us a good return, and that's nothing I'd say to people about buying property. You won't lose on property. But yeah, it's a hard one. It was a lot of long hours.
And I think it's a lot of elements are out of your control, aren't there? And I think quite, however good an employee you are, or however strong your team is, it's quite a high turnover of staff just naturally in the hospitality sector. People we've talked to about it have said it's really hard.
It opens your eyes because we had nightmares with chefs. They all seem to have their own problems that they bring into work, and getting good staff is really hard.
Yeah,
it's unsociable hours, as we know, but there are successful companies in the town that are doing okay, but we're clever out of it. But
and after that, obviously, certainly with jeans, that was when you first said to me, "I've got an idea." Fateful words.
Yeah.
I've got an idea. I think you and Connor had me and the team up, didn't you, to have a chat about things?
I'd had this idea. I can't remember, years ago now, and it was
it must have been about 8-9 years ago now.
Well, it must be. And it was Chips, wasn't it? The Chips charity. I knew Rachel. Is it Rachel?
Yeah,
Rachel from there, and we had a meeting, and they loved the idea, but to be honest, you were the only person that made this happen, and you were. And I'll say it to anybody.
That and the people that made the carts.
Well, yeah, there was that, yeah. But no.
And quite a few other people. But thanks, I'll take that.
No,
thanks
you
that.
were the person that really made it. Yeah, I was there with you. But it took an awful lot to get off the ground, didn't it?
But it was thank you. But it was a great idea. And I think what I'm getting at was you had that idea, that initial, why don't we do something? Why don't we... I think what interests me about you, and always has done, is that no idea is too big. And I think even the guest I was talking to earlier today was saying, you've just got to go for what you really believe in, and at least try, know. And I think that was the thing with your idea.
It was a wacky idea.
It was a wacky idea.
I know we ended up doing it in Dullorn, but I didn't want to do it in Dullorn. I wanted to do it down Mount Ephraim, down the hill.
You did.
And go past the train station, which was, I'm sure
we weren't allowed.
I'm sure somebody would have been seriously injured, but
let's hope not.
That was the plan.
Yeah.
And we were in conversation with the council before I come to you.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't have that. And then you got involved, and Dullorn. Well, it was a success, wasn't it? The first one was brilliant.
It just happened.
Yeah, it was fantastic, and it is a great event.
Yeah.
And the town needs to get behind it. Everybody needs to get behind it.
Thank you. But so you did. So you had the idea for the soapbox. So you've obviously had that idea.
Yeah.
And then you're still running jeans, but then obviously we did. I think we did the first one, didn't we? We did the first race, and jeans were still open, and then you decided you were going to close. So how was that again? Because that's again closing another business. How did that feel? It was time to go, was it?
It was hard because one, it was my mum's name.
Yeah,
I didn't want to do that. Two, Connor did walk away from it, didn't he? He'd had enough. He walked away from it, and then Millie said to me that, "Dad, this is too much for me. It's unsociable hours." She wasn't seeing Dan, her partner, much, and I suppose I thought of that. And Benji, my youngest son, was too young anyway for it. And I just looked at it and I thought, what was it? 18 months? No, I'm just trying to think. Was it 2-3 years ago?
Yeah.
So I was in my early 50s, and I just thought, you know what? I don't want this pressure. I'd shut the printing business, and it wasn't as difficult as what I thought to make that decision. I just went and done it. I spoke to my accountant. I had the premises, so I was shutting the business, but I wasn't losing the premises or anything. I was in a good position. I did pay off, as you know. I paid off all the creditors, as in all the food suppliers. I didn't want to do that, and it was easy. It was an easy thing to do.
So was it like you say, making that decision, a big decision like that? Okay, of course there was emotional connections to that with your mum's name and your children, but actually making that decision the second time round, once you've done it the first time, because sometimes doing something for the first time is the hardest, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But
whereas you're much more like, right, no, it's not working. I'm not doing it anymore.
You know me better than anybody.
Yeah.
And I am fairly blunt. If I decide to do something, I'm going to do it. And I just went ahead and done it.
Yeah.
And at least I knew that my 2 older children had gone into the other business, so they were fine.
Yeah.
And most of the people that we employed were people that were going off to university. A lot of waitresses,
to do other things.
The chefs went and got other jobs. So it wasn't that bad. It wasn't like with the printing business. It was harder because there was guys. But then I say that most of the printing guys that worked for me and the salesmen, they all got jobs virtually.
They got jobs, yeah,
and they got redundancy pay too.
Yeah.
So they were okay.
Everyone was okay.
Yeah. So but it is a big decision when you run a business. I'm afraid that when you're in the driving seat, it's down to you. And I'll be honest with you, I've had years of a lot of stress. And I suppose I'm lucky I've got a bit of hair, actually, because people say...
Quite a lot of hair, actually. You've done all right.
You've got hair and also you're not too grey, but I think I thrive on a bit of stress, actually.
Yeah, so, maybe a bit less these days, but...
Well, I don't know. I've got a lot on the go again, haven't I?
You've got a lot on the go, but I think again, and the good, you know what, with jeans as well, I think you had jeans, but actually, even though it didn't work necessarily with Millie and Connor in that environment, through no fault of anyone's, now you're all working at Henry Poole and they're running it and they're doing an amazing job, aren't they? As a family business, even though that's what you wanted for jeans, sometimes we plan things and they don't go the way that we want them, but you end up getting the right result. Do you see what I mean? Because you've now got your family business.
Yep.
Obviously, your ex-partner, Jackie, she's still a partner in the business.
Yep.
You've got Millie and Connor. Benji's always part of everything that you do.
Yep.
So you've got a real strength in that.
Yeah.
So with Henry Poole Funerals, you decided, again, another big idea that you'd wanted to get bigger premises, hadn't you?
I did, yeah.
Because I don't think everyone will know in Tunbridge Wells. They might well know you for Pembury and Southborough and Tunbridge.
Yeah.
But you'd had an idea and you've got premises now.
We've taken over the Barclays Bank, which is in Commercial Road in Paddock Wood.
Yeah.
I didn't really want to do it in Paddock Wood. Well, I wanted to get into Paddock Wood because... Same thing, how my brain works. I kept thinking about all the houses that have been built, the population's going to go up, and over the next few years, it's going to considerably grow.
Yeah.
So it was a good move.
It's a big site.
It's a big site. We're going to be building all our garages there to keep all our cars because we store them on a farm at the moment. So that's another overhead. But I always wanted to do it in Tunbridge Wells. I'm pleased with how it's turned out, but I did want something a bit different. But my 2 children have said to me, let's leave it at that now, Dad. They're not, I suppose, driven like me. They do a brilliant job. I'm a bit of a workaholic, I've got to admit I am. And quality of life's got to come into it. And like as Connor said, I'll never be like you, Dad. You used to work stupid hours. But as like I said, well, that's why we've got what we've got. You wouldn't have any of this if it wasn't for how I worked. And I did miss out on a few things. That's the sad thing about it. Yeah. But I've made the foundations for them, and like Connor said, I've learnt a lot from you, Dad. I've learnt some things that are probably not good, but I've learnt a lot from you how to run a business, and even now, like with him, I haven't got a problem with telling someone if they're not working properly. I will say something, and Connor is exactly the same. Yeah, I'm really proud of him like that.
Yeah, you don't get very emotionally attached to.
No.
You find it quite easy to say to someone to pull them into line, which is, I would say, is a strength in business. Personally, I find that really hard.
It's hard.
As you know, people drive me nuts and I can't tell them.
Yeah.
I can tell you, but I can't tell anyone else.
I know you tell me.
But that's hard, isn't it?
It is hard. But
for some people.
When people say to me, who trained you? No one trained me. I trained myself. Same thing. I've been lucky that I suppose when I was so young and I learnt everything, and I had to learn everything about doing the estimating, to do the invoicing. I done everything, and I had to look into, I suppose, a bit of HR. I'm not not really up on HR, but I had to think about everything, and I'm lucky like that. And that's where, like now, when the kids have got a problem, they ring me up. But I've always looked after people, and people have said to me, like, I bumped into a guy a few weeks ago, and he said to me, "You're the best boss I ever had."
That's nice.
And he's in his 70s now, and he said to me, "Honestly, you really looked after me." And everybody that worked for you was really like gutted when you closed that business, because you were such a good boss. You were one of the blokes. And that's the thing with business too. I'd say to everybody that to be a good boss, you need a good team behind you.
Yeah, you do.
And you need to treat them with respect. They treat you with respect. If you treat them, you've got to look after them. And that's why no one ever used to leave our company. It was well known in Tunbridge Wells that people just didn't leave.
No, and that says a lot. That does say a lot about an organisation.
Yeah.
What would you say would be one of the hardest things that you found in business over the years? What's been one of the hardest things?
Finding decent staff. But I've always had good staff. I've had the odd one where they might have made a mistake, but you just tell them what they've made a mistake. But people say, don't they, it's hard finding good staff. And like nowadays with the funeral business and that, like, we haven't got lots of staff, but the staff we've got are good. I've just been really lucky, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think, as you say, you've just got to, if you get the right staff, look after them.
Well, and also I think with the funeral business, it's because, you know, people, as we know when we talk to each other, not everyone feels comfortable talking around it, do they? It's not.
No, they don't.
Not everyone does.
It's a bit of a taboo subject, isn't it?
It is,
Yeah.
and I don't really see why, because I think ultimately, you know, when someone passes on, I mean, obviously my father passed away, and Henry Paul Funerals looked after my father's funeral, and I was incredibly fortunate because we had a 2-week window where my brother was over from Hong Kong, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And literally, Dad passed away, and you managed to rush the funerals through so that my brother could be there for it, which is unheard of, because sometimes you have to wait like 2 or 3 weeks.
Well, yeah, we pulled out the stops and we done it. And to be honest,
and you do that a lot for people, don't you?
We look after people, and as you say, like with the funeral business and that, it's built on reputation. And even with like the advertising now, I have pulled right back from advertising with it. I don't need to advertise like I used to. I still support a few clubs, not many now, because I've had to draw the line on it. But it's just built. It is built on a reputation, and it's plodding all the time. And I don't have to worry about it at all now.
Well, I think because people know you and they know Con and they know Millie, they know they can reach out and speak to you, and they'll get that.
I've lived in Tunbridge all my life, so I know an awful lot of people. But as you say, like with that subject, people. So I've had some people say, "Oh, how could you go into that industry?" And I said, "Well, somebody's sadly got to do it."
They have.
Yeah, they have, and to be honest,
and thank goodness that they do.
Yeah, and even like when I talk to Millie and Connor, they say to me that, because they did say to me many years ago when we started it, don't ever expect us to go into that, because we won't. And I never pushed it on them, and they just went into it. And they both said they don't enjoy seeing people upset, but they actually said that we really do like looking after people. And when they send a card or a letter in thanking them or looking at the testimonials, they just said they're so proud to have looked after them.
Yeah, that means so much.
And it does. And I think like that business, I shouldn't really say it, but it is. It's recession proof, isn't it? Like as in some businesses where you've got to. When I say like some people say about starting a business, you have got to look at starting a bespoke kind of business.
You do.
And some people start businesses like restaurants, doesn't it? How many restaurants open and shut? It's one of those industries that some of them last for many years and some of them don't. They only last a year, like as in we done.
But I think it's also, you know, it's important to say that just during this pandemic as well, that actually, you know, you had a few people making comments, not always nice comments about, oh, you're probably all right. I mean, you know, horrible things some people say, thoughtless things. Yeah. But actually, during the pandemic, it wasn't that different, was it? You weren't. You were not.
The death rate had dropped anyway, and our numbers weren't much different from the previous year.
It wasn't. Yeah,
no, it wasn't.
But it was hard for you as a company, because obviously you as a father as well, you were worried about the safety of your children and your family that were going out, that were because they, you know, again, like doctors, nurses, you're still having to go out there and do what you're doing.
They had to mask up, and when you were bringing bodies back, we had to go very careful. For a certain amount of time, we didn't really know much about it, but it was a challenging time, and at one stage we were very, very busy.
Yeah, but lucky that your kids are looking after that for you now.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
So what are your plans with all this spare time you've got?
Well, I've got to go keep what I say now, haven't I?
Well, I mean,
plans.
Yeah.
What are my plans?
Are you going to stop working at any point?
At the moment, I'm renovating I'm renovating the family house.
Yeah.
And that's going to be going on the market.
With your signature black, anything you see that's got black weatherboarding is probably a Garry Jeffery project.
I'm not gothic, but I do like black. I'm renovating.
It looks very smart.
Renovating the property inside and out and doing all the guards and everything. It's a big job. And then I am going to start another project. And there's the other project about the aircraft stuff, isn't there?
There is.
Yeah, I've got another thing.
You like doing things like you're very creative. Like you've done pottery, haven't you? You had a little stab at pottery.
Yeah, I had a bit of pottery. I've done that.
I don't say I'm not sure I've done any pottery. I've watched you.
Sorry, I started doing it before the lockdown, didn't I? And it was quite funny because. I went over there to this little pottery course, which was in the middle of nowhere on a farm, and I was the youngest person there. Like most people were probably a good 20 years older than me, and they were all staring at me as I walked in there. And the conversations were really odd, to be honest. Like it was all retirement talk.
Oh.
And but I really enjoyed it. I used to sit there looking out the window, doing my pottery. And I did enjoy it, and I made 2 or 3 things. But then when the lockdown happened, they started making you wear masks, and then they actually did stop it. So I stopped doing that. It's something that I do want to carry on with. As you know, I like painting.
You like painting, yeah.
I want to start doing some acrylic painting. That's what I want to do. But I've got the aircraft stuff, which is an idea that someone we got to know, didn't we? That gave me an idea of, and I'm doing that, and then building shepherd's huts and all kinds of things, and I don't think I will ever retire, to be honest.
Well, I think you'll always be creative, and you'll always want to use your imagination and do things. And then I think it gets to a point where if there's, I wouldn't say you're necessarily driven by the financial outcome of those things now. No, you do them because you enjoy them. Yeah. But you're not going to do it for free, obviously, if you're making something and you're investing. But there's a different driving force, I think, now. It's like you like doing things because you can do them. Yeah,
I like being creative, and I like, as I say, like the potential of this property that's going to come up, which I'm going to get, hopefully. I want to do something with that in day. When people say to me about, all you do is think about money, I don't just think about money. But the one thing I'd say to is, like I said to my youngest son, is that you do need money to do things. And we've both spoken about travelling. Yeah. And I want us to travel. I want us to go around the world. I want us. This is not a dress rehearsal, and this is what I say about. This is why it's really hit me hard. I've lost quite a few close people around me in the last 2 or 3 years. Yeah. And doing the funeral, like business, it makes you think about your life. Yeah. This is where you've got to grab it and do it. And like some people, we're all different in life. When some people start a business, and there's other people, they're quite happy working for somebody, and they're just plod for many years, and they're just to be an average family. I didn't want that. I wanted, when people say, well, why have you worked so hard? I wanted to give my kids and my wife, I wanted to give them the best I could. And I don't look back in it now and have any regrets, because I'm glad I've done it. But I want to travel with you. You know I do.
I'd quite like that. That'd be quite nice.
No, we will. And that's what I want to do.
Let's get this soapbox out of the way first, eh? Let's get that one out of the way. Yeah. So, and I mean, also, I think to touch on that as well with the soapbox, the other thing that you really wanted to do was to help charities, wasn't it? And you've always wanted to do that. You've always been very supportive of charities in and around the town because of how they've touched you personally. Are you going to be racing in the soapbox?
I think you're going to force me into it.
I think we have
got a cart that's over the farm.
I'm going to force him into it.
But
I don't think it will take much force. I'm not allowed to race a cart, so you definitely need to race a cart.
You've got to go very careful.
I'm definitely not. I've only got one cheekbone left. I can't have a go on another one. So if you had any inspirational words for anyone that's listening, that's thinking about starting any kind of business, what would it be?
What advice would I give them?
Yeah. I know we've touched on a few things, but what would it be?
got to come up with an idea that's a bit different. As in, like with my funeral business and my printing business, I was different. I used to, with the printing business, I was totally bespoke. I'd done everything, where a lot of printers would only do printing and then they'd send all their finishing out, or they wouldn't have a studio. I literally set it up that it was all done in house. That's what made me different for some time, and that's why I was successful in it. And the same with the funeral industry. We're totally different the way I've set it up. If you've got an idea, make sure you do your homework, research it, and see who you're up against, because you've got to look at your competition. And then you've got to look at your product, whatever you're going to do. You've got to price it right. But the one thing you've got to do is you've got to be prepared to work hard. And put the hours in. And it does get easier. My life near the end did become, well, it was, I was out on the road all the time. I'm going all over the country, so I wasn't getting my hands dirty anymore. I was literally seeing clients. There was a bit of entertainment, but it was. I built a business that just used to just turn out. It was turning over X amount of money, and I had good staff there. So, you've got to. But I would say one thing: be careful with partnerships. I went into a partnership with somebody on part of business, and it went awfully wrong. In the day, partnerships are very difficult.
That was in a previous business, wasn't it? So,
Well, it was,
you just got to be careful. I mean, I guess that's one thing. You've been very lucky with family, because you've got a family business, and it's brought you all close together.
I had a business partner who we're buying out, and my business partner's been brilliant. He was a great asset to our business. It was his decision to go. I didn't force him out, but some partnerships work well, and some sadly don't. So you've got to know your partner. My family in that, but if any business can be started, but you've just got to do your homework. And get a good accountant. That was another thing I'd say too. Get yourself a really good accountant. My accountant in the beginning was really good, give me some great advice, hence me buying commercial properties. And it's paid off. And I look back now and I think, crikey, I started buying properties when I was about 24. And it was the best thing I did. And
absolutely.
People, even talking to my surveyor this morning, like we were talking about rentals, and some of the properties are going to be going up in rent. And I look at that and I think, well, I've gone through all the hard stage of it. I've paid them all. I've got one property that's got a bit of finance on it. All the others are paid for. And that's the other thing. Get a good accountant that gives you good advice, because it's all very well making money, but you do need to invest your money in certain things, like either in commercial properties. Make sure you get the right investments.
Goes quick, life, doesn't it? That's the thing.
It does,
Goes quick. Well, thank you for coming on. It's been lovely to talk to you. Have you?
Yeah, I have enjoyed it.
That's good.
At the end of the day, like as I say, I done this. When you asked me to do it, I was a bit, I'm not sure about doing this. But if I can inspire one person to go out and do it, brilliant.
I think you've got a very interesting story. It's always interested me, and I'm sure it'll interest a lot of other people. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
And I think if anyone wants to get in touch with Conor or Millie, then they go to Henry Paul Funerals. There's a website, isn't it? That's the best place.
We've got a website.
People who ever want to ask about any questions about anything, actually, because any advice. It doesn't, obviously doesn't always have to be because something sad's happened.
No,
if they've got any advice, plans, anything coming up for future, people can talk to them, can't they?
They can go in any of our branches.
And if anyone wants to sponsor Garry Jeffery racing a car in the Soapbox, he will be racing a car in the Soapbox. You heard it here, right now.
All right. Looks like I'm driving now then.
You're not driving with me in the car, that's for sure.
No, that's for sure.
Anyway, thank you for coming on, my love.
All right.
Take care. Bye.